What was the most fascinating result of the study was how the negative traits were associated with the braided hairstyle, and how the braided hairstyle was actually associated with less intelligence and less confidence. So what I found was that across the 4 hairstyles I assessed, the braids were the only hairstyle where the AI did not assign tags related to intelligence. So the AI did not assume or associate intelligence with the braided hairstyle out of the 4 hairstyles. Hey y'all, it is Janice on the mic. So I wanted to test out hair, and specifically Black women's hair, to see how AI perceives Black women's hair and if there are any differences. Because I did an experiment like 2 years ago where I went into Canva's AI and I had it generate, like Canva had a system like a couple years ago where you could tell it what you wanted it to generate, and the hairstyles for Black women were wild. It just, I'll see if I can find some posts I made about the hairstyles, but it was just like so antiquated. And so I was like, I want to do this AI experiment where I see how AI, if there are differences in how AI perceives Black women's hair specifically. So here's what I did. I had ChatGPT's image generator, DALL-E, generate 8 different images for me. So there were 4 Black women and 4 white women. Everything was identical about these women, from what they were wearing to the background. It was the same 4 Black women and the same 4 white women. So it was the same woman. The only thing that changed was her hairstyle. So here are the findings, right? So what I found was that across the 4 hairstyles I assessed, so for the Black woman, it was straight hair, it was a big afro, it was a short afro or a TWA, a teeny weeny afro, and braids. The braids were the only hairstyle where the AI did not assign tags related to intelligence. So the AI did not assume or associate intelligence with the braided hairstyle out of the 4 hairstyles, right? Another really interesting finding was that out of the 4 hairstyles, the braided hairstyle resulted in lower happiness ratings from the AI and more neutral emotional ratings in comparison to the straight hair and the big afro. And so what I did was I wanted the AI to look at these images, these 8 images. I wanted it to rate emotions. I wanted it to rank competence and intelligence. I wanted it to also rate professionalism and who the AI system thought was more likely to get the job, or who was more qualified, right? And so let me break down which AI tools I used. I used Clarify, I used Amazon Recognition, and I used Claude by Anthropic. So in Clarify, the tools I used were 2 general image generation or image recognition tools and their face sentiment recognition tool. In Amazon Recognition, I use their facial analysis tool and their face comparison tools. And in Claude, I asked it 2 specific prompts. I said, which of these images, or which person looks more professional? And I said, which images look most intelligent? And so I had it evaluate the 4 images of the Black woman and the 4 images of the white woman, right? So I wasn't evaluating the Black versus white. I was evaluating the 4 images of the white woman. The white woman had different hairstyles as well. There was a short pixie cut. There was a very short bob. There was just long straight hair, and then there was curly hair for the white woman, because I wanted to see if there were differences based on hairstyle or if it was just a racial thing. So out of the 4 hairstyles, the braid hairstyle resulted in lower happiness ratings. So I had the AI evaluate happiness, right? And so it resulted in lower happiness ratings from the AI and more neutral emotional ratings in comparison to the straight hair and big afro. And contrary to what I expected, With the big afro hairstyle, the AI assigned more neutral or positive tags to the big afro hairstyle compared to the braided hairstyle. And then, so when comparing the big afro hairstyle with the short afro or the teeny weeny afro hairstyle, this is the most fascinating, right? The AI system struggled to recognize these as the same person and provided a 0% similarity rating. So for the white woman, the Claude rated the blonde pixie cut and the blonde bob the highest in professionalism and intelligence, and rated the blonde curly hair lower for structure, but still associated the style with positive traits like warmth and creativity. And the curly hair was rated lower because the hairstyle was perceived as being less structured. So these are some really interesting findings. To break things down even more, what I realized through this study was that for Black women, AI may struggle to identify hair changes as the same person. So this could affect you in the airport or when you're using things like Face ID or apps that require Face ID. For white women, they're likely to have hairstyles impact how AI tools perceive their competence. But there is less pressure to conform their hairstyles due to societal norms, and they are less likely to experience false negatives when it comes to their identity verification. So essentially, the AI did not struggle to recognize them as the same person, right? So a white woman and all of the white women, as you all saw, had blonde hair. So a blonde-haired white woman with a short pixie cut versus a white woman with long straight hair, the AI didn't struggle to recognize this is the same person. The only thing different is the hairstyle, but the AI did struggle to identify a Black woman who changed her hairstyle as the same person. So that is really, really fascinating. But I think what was the most fascinating result of the study was how the negative traits were associated with the braided hairstyle, and how the braided hairstyle was actually associated with less intelligence and less confidence. Right. I think that many of us millennials have been programmed to believe that there are all of these negative sorts of connotations that are associated with afro hairstyles, especially big afros. Right? But in actuality, the AI systems may not struggle with afros as much as maybe we thought that they would, but they actually associate more negative traits with braided hairstyles, which I think flips things on its head based on what I know. Like, I would not have any problem going into a job interview with braids versus a big afro. I think a big afro makes much more of a statement. But the research, especially if you are applying for a job that uses, a lot of these jobs, you submit a video, right? And so if an AI tool is evaluating the video, you might receive lower ratings or rankings because the AI tool is associating negative traits with you simply because of your hairstyle as a Black woman. So what can we do? Because I think that that's a really important piece of this puzzle. It's like, now that we have this information, what can actually be done? So I think talking about this research is vital. And I did this study actually in the summer of 2025. And I saw a YouTube video, and I'll link it below. It was super fascinating, where this woman did a study on a dating app, and she took a Black woman. I think she did the same. She had AI generate an image of the same Black woman with an afro and a Black woman with straight hair. And she wanted to see how men on dating apps perceived the different hairstyles. And what she found was that the woman she created with the afro hairstyle got a lot more interest on dating apps, which I find to be super duper fascinating. And I think watching her video made me realize or remember this study that I did in August. I think I did this August of 2025. So it made me think about that. But I think talking about this research, and I'm grateful because when I posted about this research, I wrote a Forbes article about it, and Blavity reposted it. Black Enterprise reposted it. There may have been one other or two other publications, Black publications, that posted about it. And I'm grateful for that, because I was like, oh, this needs to get out. Because this research is really, really important, and no one is really studying how AI perceives hairstyles, and specifically Black women's hairstyle. So I would be interested in doing another study where I looked at Black men and Black women to see, because I think it would have been interesting if one of the women had locks, and then I use a Black man with maybe who is bald, maybe one with a low cut, maybe one with an afro, and one with locks, to see how AI perceived that Black male job candidate. So I think that would be super fascinating. But I think we have to talk about this type of research because it's really important, and it could impact us, especially when we are on the job market. As a job candidate, I think you should find out and look into what AI tools, if any, are actually used in the hiring process, because tons of companies, especially larger companies, do use AI tools because it makes their job easier and more efficient. But if AI is being used in the job process, companies are required to disclose that. So disclosure is required. So if you do find out that AI is being used in a hiring process, I believe it might vary based on what state you live in if you're in the US, or what country you live in if you're outside of the US. But if that is something that is made aware, or you are made aware of, that is something that should be definitely, companies have to disclose that, or should be able to disclose that to you. So find out if AI is even being used, and also support advocacy groups that are promoting the regulation of AI. Things like the Algorithmic Justice League, which was started by Dr. Joy Buolamwini, who is she's a pivotal, monumental AI scientist and researcher. She went to MIT. She did a really huge, groundbreaking research where she found that AI struggles to identify women that are darker skinned. So when it comes to skin tone, AI has its own colorism and skin tone bias. But she started the Algorithmic Justice League, and so she really the group pushes for regulation of AI. Also, the Electronic Frontier Foundation is another great advocacy group to follow and keep up with. And also you can, if depending on where you live and what country or state you live in, you should also be pushing for legislation around the regulation of AI, right? Again, if you're in, I believe New York has state laws that require any employer to disclose that AI is used in the hiring process, right? So if you live in a place where that is not required to disclose, you should push for legislation that requires disclosure and requires guardrails around how the AI tools and systems are being used. And then lastly, it's important for us to consistently talk about hair discrimination. Follow the work of, lawmakers when it comes to the Crown Act. I think that there are maybe 20-something states currently that have protections against race-based hair discrimination. So follow along with that and really push lawmakers in your state to adopt protections against race-based hair discrimination. Also, I'm going to put some resources in the description box, because I also wrote a important piece for Harvard Business Review about hair discrimination and how it shows up for Black women in the workplace. I believe that this is the first Harvard Business Review article that ever focused on Black hair discrimination. So I'm super duper proud of that piece. So I'm going to drop it in the comment section below if you want to check it out. I've also written about texturism as a 4C hair girly. I've experienced texturism, and I'm going to share more about my hair journey on this channel, because I'm doing some fun stuff with my hair. So I'm going to share it with y'all, but to, just talk more about hair discrimination, how it impacts people in the workplace, how it impacts people at school, just sharing and talking about this is imperative. So I hope y'all found this video to be interesting. Again, I don't think I mentioned this, but I wrote a Substack article where I broke down the research in much more detail. So I will link that below as well. So I wrote a Substack article, and then I wrote a Forbes article about the Substack article and about the research that I did. So I'll link all of those resources, as well as the think Black Enterprise, Blavity, and I think one or two other publications wrote about this. So I'll also link those in the description box below. But thank y'all so much for watching. I want to know in the comment section, are you surprised? Some of you may be watching this and be like, duh, AI is just replicating the same biases that we have. I think that the braided hairstyle being associated with lower intelligence surprised me, to be honest. But are y'all surprised? Is this research fascinating to you? Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts, and I will see y'all in the next video.